Chapter 809. Hidden Story 1. Final Day was one of the active skills of the Rank 1 monster Snictura, and its effects were pretty diverse. Boom. Meteors fell from the sky. Flash. Lightning bolts that did the same damage as Rank 3 attack magic struck the ground. Rumble. The ground also sometimes shook and caved in to inhibit your movement for a bit. True to its name, the ability came with some terrifying effects, and all for an entire 24 hours within 6 miles of the caster. After hearing the explanation, Einar looked genuinely excited. Isn't that a good thing? We can kill monsters without having to do a single thing. I didn't bother trying to explain it to her. For barbarians, learning with their body was the best method. Flash. When the lightning bolt struck her, Einar couldn't even let out a squeal as she shivered in place. Bang. This was the biggest problem with Final Day. Although the meteors, lightning bolts, and other effects befitting the end times were certainly destructive, they didn't distinguish between allies and enemies. Fenelon. Are you alright? I'm fine. I just can't move my mouth. Flash. Einar got hit by another lightning bolt. Are you alright? Goo. Emily. Stop this. Already. It hurts a lot. Einar somehow got unlucky and got hit twice by lightning already, leading her to quickly call for Amelia. However, the latter only had a shocked expression for her. That would be because of the second problem with this skill. It was impossible to cancel it even as it struck indiscriminately between allies and enemies. Emily. You might not have heard me, but... Stop, Einar, I admonished. This isn't something she can stop while it's going on. It will be maintained for 24 hours no matter what she does. What? Don't lie to me. I'm not an idiot. What kind of ability doesn't let you turn it off? I trailed off, not knowing what to say. I wasn't expecting her to shout that out like it was the most obvious thing in the world. However, judging by the others' reactions, I wasn't alone in my surprise. Raven. Aren't most activated abilities not able to be cancelled while they're active? Oh. Why yes. I suppose. Even the indomitable soul skill that Ms. Einar possesses continues on for its set duration after being activated. Once she heard it straight from Raven's mouth, Einar couldn't come up with a retort. Amelia, the cause of all this discussion in the first place, carefully took a look around at us. Well, it's still interesting. It maintains itself for 24 hours. Not interesting. Terrifying. But this is a big problem. If this is how Fenelon reacts to it, most normal people could die in one hit. And the fact that this will continue for 24 hours, this is a problem. Amelia cleared her throat, knowing that she was the cause of the accident. Then, with a gentle voice and direct gaze, she spoke to me. So, strictly speaking, it's not all my fault. For a moment, I thought I might have heard her wrong. I was wondering what she was going to say, and she was pushing the blame onto someone else. Amelia was. When I just stared at her, utterly baffled, she turned away from me and said, I mean. Yandel, this shouldn't have worked. If the conditions you talked about were right. Oh, well, that's true. That's right, Mr. Yandel, Raven said, barreling straight ahead with curiosity. Why was it cast successfully? The attention of the rest also fell on me. I hummed thoughtfully. Who knows? The problem was, I also had no idea why it was able to cast. In the game, there was exactly one condition that needed to be met. For Final Day to be activated. What do you mean, who knows? Didn't you say that this is only able to be activated on the day the labyrinth closes? Raven was right. The skill could only be used on the day the labyrinth closed, the 7th day for the first floor, the 10th day for the second floor, and so on. We may have been in a hidden field, but we were still on the 6th floor, so it should only be usable on the 60th day. Then how come it activated now? Good question. ignoring the fact that we were in trouble. Wasn't this a little weird? How could an ability that could only be used on the day the labyrinth closed be used now? Boom. Were there other hidden things about it that I wasn't aware of? To be honest, I'd been getting too lucky. Recently, we almost got wiped out by Snictura, but then we were able to get out of that battle without anyone dying, and it even dropped an essence. We were lucky. Far too lucky. And because of that, I feel even more uneasy. From personal experience, good events were always followed by bad events, or vice versa. I have a lot to think about. The Lord of the Sixth Floor being summoned, the activation of Final Day, and the decisions I should make. But as for right now, we're not doing too bad. That was my conclusion, anyway. If we ignored the happenings on the outside and just focused on clearing the hidden field, memories of the end, the activation of Final Day was good for us. It would at least help us defeat the beast, which was the boss of this island. Over 10% of monsters within the region have been eliminated. The authority of the ancient beast is weakened. Over 20% of monsters within the region have been eliminated. The authority of the ancient beast is weakened. Even though we were just walking around the outer regions of the island with Amelia, the monsters within the island were being defeated at a quick pace. It was like we were nuking everything around us. You have defeated a fanatic gatekeeper. Plus XP7. You have defeated a frightening memory. Plus XP6. You have defeated a fascinating flower. Plus XP6. You have defeated a winter hound. Judging by the feeling of experience welling up every once in a while, the monsters over rank 4 were also being crushed by these meteors and lightning bolts. It might be possible to clear out the entire area in just one day. Considering that I planned for this part of the expedition to take us a week, this was a much more accelerated pace. Not that it didn't bring a new variety of problems, though, just like everything else. In this world, haste made waste. Raw. This is the 10th time I got hit by lightning already. Kya. Mr. Parav got hit by a meteor. Party members were fainting after getting hit by lightning and going into critical condition after getting hit by meteors. The biggest problem, however, was something else. We have 5 people left now, right? Since Ms. Rains doesn't need it immediately, it's 4 in reality. Ah, I see. Memories of the End was a field that we needed to clear while continuously resetting Terminus. However, Final Day ended up getting in the way of that reset. After all, we needed to actually see the monster to be able to apply distortion magic on it. We tried to run around with our wizards to cast it on the monsters we saw, but due to the sheer number decrease in monsters we were encountering, our harvest was less than expected. This made everyone worry, especially the members who hadn't been able to reset their timers yet. Will we be okay? We only have 2 more hours left. Haha. It'll be fine, Ms. Maroni. Don't worry so much. Not worry, Mr. Parav. You can only say that with a smile because you've already reset your time. I wasn't smiling. There was a pause. I'm sorry. I was too sensitive about it. It's not even your fault either. It's fine. I understand that you're in a situation that could elicit a reaction like that, so you don't have to apologize. Of course, in the worst case scenario, I was planning on getting the members who weren't able to reset through the portal onto Skull Island. That would at least cleanse their terminus. The problem is that the floor outside isn't completely safe since the Lord of the Floor has been summoned. Still, it was 100 times better than being in a situation where you were 100% guaranteed to die. Time until death: 1 hour 50 minutes and 17 seconds. With less than 2 hours left until Terminus activated, we moved with all our might and focused on applying distortion magic on the monsters. Lilith Maroni has consumed original sin. Beleg Shusha D. Tertia has consumed original sin. We were able to reset 2 people and succeeded in obtaining a third one as well. After that, we just needed one more. Oh, however, for some reason, the guild master Ilya Adnes's expression brightened as soon as one dropped. Although I didn't say much about it, I had a problem with what he mumbled afterward. Ahem, so it's finally my turn. It was something I couldn't ignore as the captain. Your turn. There is one more person who hasn't eaten original sin yet. Oh, you mean him. Adnes then glanced toward Aoyan, who was standing next to Amelia. However, he didn't look too worried. Haha, please don't joke around. I mean, you aren't feeding this to people randomly, are you? From what I can tell, you first feed the vanguard, before feeding the backline. And then the ones who would be helpful to the expedition. Wow, he noticed that. Maybe I should have expected as much from someone in politics, but he was pretty quick with it. But how could someone so intelligent not notice this? Aoyan is next. You're the last in order, you punk. Needless to say, the pecking order caused some amount of conflict in the group. Guild Master Adnes looked over at me with a look of dissatisfaction. What are you looking at? He hesitated. I'm not looking at anything. I literally saw you. Are you saying you are more helpful to this expedition than Aoyan? I pressed. Adnes jumped to respond, as if he had been waiting for permission. Ahem. It has been a while since I retired, and I do understand we each have our talents. But I am not so unskilled as to lose to any random person. From what I could tell, he was a little miffed that his importance was being pushed down by a mere navigator in his eyes. I'm okay. I can eat the last one. Aoyan volunteered. I glanced his way. What are you okay with? Here. Well, Mr. Adnes is much more incredible than I am. Admittedly, I got a little pissed when I heard that. I couldn't tell if he was saying that because he didn't want to cause any strife or because he was genuinely that humble, but I wasn't just going to sit back and let a member of my clan do that to himself. Who cared if Adnes was the guild master, honestly? Aoyan, you are a member of our Anabata clan, and he is not. Got anything else to say about that? If not, eat. I will give Adnes the next one we get. There was an order to everything. That ends the discussion there. We don't have time, so no questions. Adnes didn't say anything else. He knew as well that here, my word was law. Aoyan Rockrobe has consumed original sin. Fire resistance is permanently increased by +1. After resetting Aoyan's timer, I was able to continue with a bit of weight lifted off my chest. The same couldn't be said for Adnes. Haven't we gotten too relaxed about this? You're imagining it. And no, I can tell that we are moving a little slower than before, and we are getting further away from the portal. Didn't you say that we need to take that portal in the worst case scenario? Everyone is tired. Don't whine so much. When everyone's exhausted. I apologize. It wasn't my intention to irritate you. You should have said that from the start. I needed to correct his attitude every once in a while. Then we'll increase our pace. After that, we continued to move as quickly as before to resume our hunt, and in the end, we were able to reset Adnes's timer as well. Ilya Adnes has consumed original sin. Fire resistance is permanently increased by +1. Some more time passed. Above, I raised my head at someone's shouting, only to see a black portal being formed. It wasn't that surprising to see. Again, in truth, that was one of the effects of Final Day as well. On top of meteor strikes and lightning bolts, the skill also sometimes summoned portals like this that dropped a random monster on the ground. I wonder what it's going to be this time. Don't lower your guard too much. If what Mr. Yandel told us is right, it can summon up to rank 2 monsters. As soon as we discovered the portal, everyone got into their battle formation. It's small. Is it a miniature type? It doesn't look that powerful. The monster slowly revealed its form from the portal. And and that monster screamed as it fell to the ground. A wah, thud. Having fallen onto its butt, the monster rubbed its butt with both its hands before saying, "Oh ouch. But I succeeded. I was able to actually come here. Wahoo. My research in the mana quantum dynamical extraction conversion dynamical alignment was correct. Wait, was this even a monster? I had no idea, but the maybe monster shouted in excitement before turning around, and then immediately startling itself when it noticed our presence. Hike. Who are you? That was what I wanted to ask. It was talking in the ancient language as well. What are you? I asked back. Me. I am called Arda. Quote opening parenthesis ... Arda, we found yet another hidden secret that I didn't know about. Chapter 810. Hidden Story 2. There's no way this is a coincidence. Machine Monster Arda was the final boss of Arda's secret base. My gamer instincts, honed through nearly a decade of playing Dungeon and Stone, were telling me that these two beings didn't share a name by sheer happenstance. Is using final day on this island the condition needed to meet this guy? I'd had no way of knowing up to here, which just meant I needed to learn the answer now. Raven, use barrier magic, I ordered. So suddenly, she questioned in protest. But you told me not to use it all this time around because of how much mana it costs to cast. We'll need to bear with it if we want to try talking to this thing here and now. Understood. Raven immediately created a dome-shaped barrier around us that sort of looked like an umbrella. Boom. Flash. Rumble. The translucent barrier successfully blocked the meteors and lightning strikes falling from the sky. All right. Now that we have a quiet environment to talk in. Oh, interesting. A language similar to the common tongue but different in its construction. The man looked at all of us up and down. Still, I suppose the language hasn't completely been lost since someone is speaking it here. Well, the language itself doesn't particularly matter. Then suddenly, something changed about the words coming out of his mouth. Establish intent communication, he mumbled. All right, can you hear me now? Maroni flinched in surprise. I turned to her and asked, can you understand him, Maroni? Pardon, yes, I don't know how, but I can understand what that man is saying. Even though my brain knows that he's speaking in a different language. Noticing Maroni's reaction, the man-monster thing carefully asked, excuse me, is this perhaps your first time experiencing intent communication? Pardon. Yes, I've never heard of anything like this, he sighed. I suspected as much when I saw your attire, but it seems a lot of technology has been lost. Do not be alarmed. I have only connected the waves emitted by our brains so that we can understand each other. Though I do suppose it's natural to find it unfamiliar at first. The man who identified himself as Arda then paused, looking at the meteor and lightning beyond the barrier that Raven had created. This truly is the final day of the world. It is exactly as I imagined it to be. He marveled with sparkling eyes. He giggled to himself then. With these research results, I won't need to worry about next year's budget. Many things about him remained very suspicious, least of which was the fact that he had come out of that mysterious portal, and yet I didn't feel threatened by him. The way he looked, the way he spoke, and the way he dressed. Even though it all made him look slightly creepy, it also made him seem harmless. Hey, Arda was it? I called. He seemed to shake himself back to awareness. Pardon. Yes, I was distracted for a moment. But who are you lot? If possible, I would appreciate it if you would explain the current situation too. We'll be the ones to ask you questions. Of course. You must have many questions as well. I will answer all your questions. However, could I make a request as well? It's nothing major, so you don't need to worry. I took a breath. Talk. If I answer all your questions, could you answer my questions as well? In truth, I have many questions regarding our current situation. Ha ha ha. What was with this guy? Was he hiding his true strength? I was a little surprised by how daring he seemed to be, considering how weak he looked, but since obtaining information about him was the foremost priority, I nodded. Understood, I promise. All right, then go on. What is it you want to ask? Who are you? As I said before, my name is Arda. Currently, no, I suppose I should say previously. Regardless, I am the top researcher at the first Magic Engineering Research Center. Haha, I'm not trying to brag, but only the Vice Director and Director of the Research Center are above me. Research Center, I echoed with a furrowed brow. Something about that term seemed familiar. Oh, he began curiously, do you perhaps know about our institute? Well, not particularly, but I did have a hunch. Do you mean the research center that uses monsters as research material to create living weapons? Pardon, we don't do anything like that. Our research center truly focuses only on the development and progress of magic engineering. Although our research data is used to create weapons, we aren't a research station made to make weapons. I see. Fair enough. The place I explored on the first underground floor was named the Pantheon Research Station. After all, not this, magic engineering, whatever. I decided to move on to my next question. So, what's someone of your status doing here? Well, what else is a research member of a research station to do except do research? Don't joke around. We don't have time. Ah, yes, I suppose from your perspective, you are running quite low on time. Considering that you are no expert on this, I will try to explain this as plainly as possible. The research we have been undertaking was on the observation of the time and space of the future. The observation of time and space. That's right, observing the future to change the present. This was the core of our research. Not the past. Haha, you seem to be referring to time travel. But it has been quite some time since it was proven that changing the past to change the present is impossible. That is why we decided to focus on the future. What, then, was his plotline that his research succeeded, and now he was here? Isn't this supposed to be a fantasy setting? It was pretty random, but I understood what the story was. So could I ask you a question in return? In truth, I've been dying to ask you this. What year are we in? We were the future. RPG was short for role-playing game, or to put it simply, a game where you played a role. In a grand sense, the new reality I'd found myself in hadn't changed that. If I kept up my role while continuing on with the story, the episode would come to a natural conclusion at some point, and then I would receive a reward. And that was why I need to find clues to progress with this new story. Once I'd come to that decision, I talked with Arda for a while to get information from him. The difference was, this wasn't like the game where I could just spam the spacebar to skip all the dialogue and go straight to completing the quest. New World Year. My goodness. The name of the era itself has changed. The world ended once due to the witch. And now, the city-nation ruled by the Raftanian royal family is the only thing that remains. I can't believe my ears. Ah, I gave you the impression that I knew of the situation here. Haha, it is true to some degree. The coordinates that I chose were the end of the infinite time, the final day, so to speak. Pardon, why did I do that? Well, who wouldn't? I was curious about the end of the world I live in. Oh, haha, am I not afraid? Well, if my heart stops or I end up in a dangerous situation, I will return to my original time. I am fine, so long as I don't die there. The greatest magic engineers are waiting for me there, and they can even pull me from the brink. Why do we have magic engineers? And not priests? Has this era's magic engineering fallen so far? Well then, how did the world end up in this state? From what you said before, isn't the witch who tried to end the world dead? Now, Arda gained information about our world, And I about his through our conversation. In conclusion, for the end of the world to truly exist, I must learn the cause of the end and the method to stop it. People of the future, could you help me? If you do, I will prepare something to stop this disaster from happening in the past. There it was, the basic layout of the quest. Needless to say, the most important about it was the reward. Thing. What do you mean? What reward will I give you? Don't you want to stop the end of the world? There is nothing in particular I can give you. Then was the reward distributed in another way? Something like a treasure vault that only this guy could enter? I was joking. The world ends if we fail, so what good is a reward? I will do anything to stop the world from ending. With that, I ended the talk about the reward by playing it off. I knew you were joking. Let's continue our conversation as we move. Yes, that sounds good. I don't have much approved time on hand either. Approved time. I forgot to tell you this. There is a limit to how long I can stay here, so I must gather as much information during that time. What happens if you don't return within the approved time? That won't be happening. In that case, I will need to face the end of the world with you. I see. I brushed the idea off as a simple curiosity for now. I couldn't just say to his face that I was thinking of forcing him to stay if a special event or reward didn't appear while we took him around. Maybe the real quest will start if this guy doesn't return to his original time. Since this was a hidden secret that I had never encountered during my time playing the game, I needed to do everything I could to explore it. Raven, I called. Cancel the spell. After Raven dispelled her barrier, we officially resumed wandering around the island. Excuse me, Mr. Arda. Raven, who hadn't been able to join in on the conversation because she had been focusing on her spell, began talking with Arda as well. Mr. Arda, well, she tried to. Do you not want to talk to me? Eventually, he revealed, it's not that. I'm quite shy, but you were pretty open with Mr. Yandel. I focused on this exchange to see if anything useful came of it, but all I learned was that Arda was terrible at talking to women, and I am interested in magic engineering as well. Could you tell me a little about that? Raven asked politely. Oh, such a beautiful person as yourself is interested in magic engineering. Is that true? Yes. I am. Ask me whatever questions you have. I'll answer them all. And it seemed that Arda was weak to women interested in magic engineering. All right, now I know to get Raven to ask him about whatever I need to get out of him. I listened in for a few minutes more, but the magic engineering concepts they were talking about were completely alien to me, so skip. However, I didn't stop them. Adding to Raven's knowledge was a good thing, and I just focused on clearing out the island. Over 50% of monsters within the region have been eliminated. The authority of the ancient beast is weakened. Over 60% of monsters within the region have been eliminated. The authority of the ancient beast is weakened. Over 70% of monsters within the region have. My apologies, but I should really be using this time to focus on gathering information rather than conversing like this. Do not worry. I will do everything within my power to save you, Ms. Raven. Around the time that we had cleared about 70% of the island of monsters, Arda apparently regained his senses, as he stopped his conversation on magic engineering and returned to his main duty. So, Mr. Yandel, was it? You said that the cause of the end was a beast. Why are we not heading in that direction? Now he asked. Just how weak was he? To women who fit his type. It was honestly baffling, but I still answered him. We need to kill the monsters of the island to weaken the beast first. I see. Is there anything you've figured out while looking around? Well, not much yet. Yeah, no surprise there. He had been more focused on Raven the whole time, anyway. Ah, but there is one thing I noticed, he noted. What is it? The center of the island, where that end-bringing beast resides. I can sense powerful waves of mana emanating from it. Mana waves. Was it going to be a secret room that I hadn't been able to find in the game? Or was it simply just the location of the boss? Well, whatever it was, I would find out soon enough. Over 90% of monsters within the region have been eliminated. The authority of the ancient beast is weakened. It was time to take on the boss. Chapter 811. Hidden Story 3. Memories of the End was the hidden field that could be reached through Skull Island. In the game, fighting the boss of End Island, the beast, was all you needed to do. On the island, however, you could enjoy additional content if you did the work of discovering and fulfilling certain hidden conditions. For example, if you left the island and went to the secret base, you could fight in the raid against Snictura. You could then receive a quest there, go back to End Island, and defeat the beast, and then return to Arda's secret base to obtain additional rewards. If you refused the additional reward at that point, you could fight against the real boss, the machine monster, Arda. I can just ignore the Arda raid since I was planning on skipping it, anyway. All I needed to do now was complete the second part of the story by defeating the beast and receiving my additional rewards. Or that was the plan, until this guy showed up. I thought it was simply a difference in mana. I can see concentration at first, but now that the mana infused within the air itself is different in nature. This distribution is usually only seen at artificial sites. Just what was this guy? Was there a hidden chapter on the island other than the fight against the machine monster Arda? My gamer instincts were telling me it was more likely than not, so I listened more intently to what he said. I'll need to search for this island's coordinates in my original time to look deeper into it. If the original island has the same distribution, then it could be considered a trait inherent to the island itself. It was common in games for hidden secrets to be first discovered through the random ramblings of NPCs. Well, in this guy's case, I honestly have no idea what he's talking about. The distribution and concentration of mana. No clue what that was all about. It wasn't like I was a wizard. However, I was sure that taking Arda around and finishing off the beast raid was the right path to take. And the reason for it was quite simple. The center. We need to get to the center of the island. I need to observe the phenomenon closely so that when I return, just what was this guy? Was there a hidden chapter on the island other than the fight against the machine monster Arda? My gamer instincts were telling me it was more likely than not, so I listened more intently to what he said. I'll need to search for this island's coordinates in my original time to look deeper into it. If the original island has the same distribution, then it could be considered a trait inherent to the island itself. It was common in games for hidden secrets to be first discovered through the random ramblings of NPCs. Well, in this guy's case, I honestly have no idea what he's talking about. The distribution and concentration of mana. No clue what that was all about. It wasn't like I was a wizard. However, I was sure that taking Arda around and finishing off the beast raid was the right path to take, and the reason for it was quite simple. The center. We need to get to the center of the island. I need to observe the phenomenon closely so that when I return. The method for summoning it was pretty simple. Stay in its territory for long enough, and it would just show up. I should also explain that there was no other way to summon it, or at least, an alternative route didn't exist in the game I played. Formations. That was why even as we hustled into formation, I grew suspicious. It appeared this quickly. This had never happened before in-game. I always needed to move around for at least an hour or two before the boss appeared. Yet somehow, this time, the boss appeared as soon as we entered its territory. Oh, is it here? Arda wondered. Was it true, then? Was it because of him? Either way, that wasn't the point at the moment. Yeah, so go and stand over there, I ordered, sending Arda to the back for his safety. Yes, understood. Then I turned forward, heart hot and racing with the threat of battle. As always, I took deep breaths to calm myself. It was a routine of mine, like those rituals athletes did before competitions. In and out, I breathed until I felt myself instinctively relax, then clenched my hand. This small moment of calm would increase my chances of winning, however slightly. Rumble, it's coming. The ground swelled in waves before the beast revealed itself from between the surging ripples of magma. Boom. Every minute, every second, counted. That was because its aura skill, Song of the End, had a very peculiar effect. All time is accelerated. The only description available was that one line. However, just like in those superhero comics, the shorter and simpler the ability description, the more powerful and cheat-like the heroes became. The same went for Song of the End. Time until death, 22 hours 50 minutes and 43 seconds. You will periodically take fire damage, and the fire damage will increase as time passes. From this point onward, the time remaining for Terminus would decrease at a much faster pace, and the damage of eternal burning would amp up much faster as well. The damage having effect of Orb of Fire wouldn't be able to help me for as long as it had before. I had decided how long we could spend defeating this boss way back when I created the expedition plans. 30 minutes. 30 minutes was the maximum time we could afford. If we took any longer than that, we'd forfeit the raid and just run without looking back. But if things go well, we won't have to do that. Although the beast was definitely a difficult boss, it was much easier to fight than the Snake of the End, Snictura. That was, of course, under the assumption that someone knew the strategy to defeat it in the first place. Seeing the beast appear right before her, Einar sounded weirdly excited as she shouted, "Oh, Bjorn, is it that thing she had made that big speech about fighting the bones she saw on Skull Island?" Apparently, that desire hadn't waned. I honestly thought she'd be afraid when she saw its living form. After casting Jauntization, I observed the monster from behind my shield. It was around 30 feet tall, large enough to be categorized as very large by monster standards. Its build was also similar to that of Lord of Chaos, Riakus, with that bipedal form and huge tail. From a modern perspective, it looked like a dinosaur. Graw. It crouched, then roared directly at us, shaking the very air around me. It wasn't a simple roar either, but a skill. Ancient Beast has cast Final Warning. The physical stats of all nearby characters will gradually decrease over 5 minutes. When hit by the skill, one's physical stats would decrease for a set amount of time. Although it was an area of effect debuff, the stat decrease wasn't substantial, and the time limit of only 5 minutes meant that the skill's value wasn't that high. All time is accelerated, but when compounded with the effect of Song of the End, it was practically a cheat. Skill. What is this? Strength is leaving my body, and I'm starting to hear weird voices. 2. The skill's maximum effect would then take not the full 5 minutes to apply but instead just 1 minute. It also didn't have a cast cooldown, so we were going to be dealing with the effects of it for basically the whole fight. Well, we would be dealing with it if we hadn't prepared any countermeasures. Do we have to fight like this? Why was she like this again? I could vividly remember giving her the expedition briefing myself. Raven. At my short command, Raven cast the spell she had prepared beforehand. Arua Raven has cast the rank 5 curse. Magic white noise. You were temporarily deafened. As soon as the spell was cast, silence filled my ears, as if I had put in earplugs in a quiet room. A complete silence where I couldn't hear the rustling of my body or even my own breathing. The reason for casting this spell was simple. Final warning has been dispelled. When this spell was cast, a debuff would be applied that no magic tools, consumables, holy spells, or essence abilities could dispel. And surprisingly, I had no idea how it worked. But was that even important to a gamer like me? Gamers didn't ask questions like that, they just needed to know if something was effective or not. So it actually works. I just stumbled into this tactic while playing the game and figured it was a bug. However, after coming to Raffinia and delving into the labyrinth countless times, I realized that there were no such things as bugs in this game. But this does feel nice. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little worried. If this didn't actually work, we would have needed to give up the raid immediately and run. I turned back to my party members. Since we had entered total silence with the spell, I communicated using signals that we had discussed before and carried on with the raid. Ancient Beast has cast Ruin's Resentment. Greatly decreases damage taken temporarily, and when the set time is up, greatly increases stats relative to damage taken. When I raised a closed fist, everyone stopped attacking. Ancient Beast has cast Predation. When I opened my palm and waved it front and back, everyone other than me stepped away to evade. Beleg Shusha D. Tertia has cast Soul's Trumpet. When summons attack the same target, additional damage is dealt. When I raised just my index finger, only the ranged damage dealers were to attack. Einar Fenelon has cast Focus Strike. Erwin Fornaci D. Tertia has cast Rupture. When I raised my index and middle fingers, both ranged and melee members were to attack. And when I raised just my middle finger like this, silence, everyone used their strongest ability to deal as much damage as possible. Weird. Feels like something's missing. I guess it's because I can't hear anything. Anyway, the raid progressed swimmingly. Ancient Beast has cast Earth Shake. Phase 1 ended. Ancient Beast has cast Bone Flute of the End. Then we safely cleared Phase 2 after using nearly an army's worth of resources. Ancient Beast has cast Homecoming. Phase 3 was dealt with without much problem as well. If I were to identify the moment of greatest danger, it was when Einar fell unconscious after being struck by lightning, and we nearly took heavy damage because of that. It's only taken us 18 minutes so far. We have time. With that, we were able to reach the final Phase 4 after only 18 minutes of fighting. Ancient Beast's health is below 20%, slowly recovering its lost authority. Phase 4 had two notable gimmicks to take note of. One was that the monster's so-called authority that we had sealed away by clearing out the monsters on the island would slowly begin to recover. The second, and Ancient Beast has cast Authority of Loss. The second was that the first authority it used would target the Cursed One without fail. Wow, using Loss from the start. Surprisingly, it used its strongest authority. First, it didn't have a cast time, and it was impossible to block this single target. Instacle ability. A hazy cloud took form around the beast's body, then flew toward its target. I hadn't mentioned it in a bit, but the target had already been decided. The one who obtained the title of Cursed One by dealing the final blow on the Skull Island boss. One might ask, Guild Master, Ilya Adnis. Of course, I didn't put in the work of planning this raid just to make the Guild Master into a sacrifice. I wasn't such a wicked barbarian. Plus, this was the first authority it used and it had been cast while the boss was recovering, so the effect wouldn't be that powerful. Its other authorities would be stronger later on. In any case, he wouldn't get KO'd just by getting hit by that. However, he would lose something he possessed. What could it be? What would the Guild Master lose? His ability to heal, his equipment, or maybe one of his essences. I whipped around to check on the Guild Master. Then I couldn't help the silent exclamation that escaped me. Ah, lava. Meteors, and lightning strikes all flashed across my vision. Perhaps it was because all of those things were lighting up the surroundings that light reflected off of him like a mirror. So, even that can happen. He had lost his hair. Chapter 812. Hidden Story 4. The Guild Master lost his hair. It hadn't receded. It hadn't withered into any bald spots. It was just there, and then it was gone. He lost it so thoroughly that his scalp looked like it was shiny and smooth. Well, that worked out. I forced myself to turn away and look on the bright side. If this were a cup, some would describe it as half full while others would call it half empty. I had come to realize with time and experience that the former was a much more productive mindset to have, and in truth, good would indeed be the word to use to describe what had just happened. It's not the best look for him. But still, he's pretty lucky that his hair was all he lost. The authority could have taken his equipment or even the skills and stats of his essence, so losing his hair was a much lesser penalty. He could just grow it back. However, since I had absolutely no desire to go bald like him, I let out a roar and charged forward. Bahallah, although neither I nor my allies could hear my scream, that beast absolutely still could. It actually roared back at me as if to respond to my battle cry. Not that I could hear it. Arg, it's spitting on me. Getting spat on always felt worse than getting blood on my skin, seriously. Still, I didn't have time to wipe my face, so I just kept charging as the spit dripped off my skin. I blocked its gargantuan attack one more time. Bang! You have used Dragon Plate of Aegis. Then I used the effect of the armor that I obtained not in the labyrinth, but in the outside world. The beast's eyes went wide. Of course it was surprised. A Viking warrior, much larger than it had appeared out of nowhere, and that warrior even slammed his greatsword directly onto its head. I hope you like it. The damage dealt by the spirit warrior was reflective of the damage I had been taking for the past 18 minutes. Reflecting all accumulated damage, I was only giving back what I got. It didn't take long for the beast raid to come to an end. Once the damage from my dragon plate dealt critical damage to the beast, we dumped all the damage we could onto it for the next 3 minutes, and that was enough to make it collapse. If I were to pick out a few notable things that happened. Ancient Beast has cast Authority of Change. The frame before we killed it, the beast managed to use one last authority. Unlike the first skill, this one's target was completely random, and yet, surprisingly enough, it was once again the Guild Master. What the hell? If surprising was the word for seeing him targeted twice, the effect of the authority was altogether unbelievable. He turned into a woman. His still bald frame slimmed down as feminine features were applied to his body. To put it simply, he became Ms. Ilya Adnis. I watched him gesticulate, growing increasingly curious about what he was saying. When I signaled with my hand, Raven understood my intention and undid the spell applied to the group. What is this? Came his shrieking voice. FF first my hair and NN now. Why? Is my chest. That's not the only thing that changed. He pulled out a mirror and started panicking, but I didn't have the time to waste on consoling him. Calm down. You can grow your hair back. That isn't the problem. Then are you discriminating against women? No, this isn't discrimination. Don't worry, you'll return to normal after some time. He finally paused. Is that true? Yeah, I swear upon my warrior's honor. I thought about feigning ignorance and tormenting him a little, but he'd probably grumble and complain the entire expedition, so I just told him the truth, straight up. We still had things left to do. Oh, I can finally hear again. But is it really over? It doesn't seem to be moving. More importantly, the Guild Master. Don't talk about it. He'll hear you. The members started buzzing with questions as they eyed the collapsed beast. A few of them were understandably worried. You can relax, I reassured them. It's all over. But then, why is the corpse not disappearing? Oh, that, I didn't know exactly why, but the beast was an unranked monster. Even within the game, it didn't give experience points, and the corpse didn't disappear whether or not distortion magic was applied to it, unless it dropped its essence. Of course, Misha bit her lips in regret when I explained it to her. Ah, so it's not going to give us an essence this time. I could sympathize with her disappointment. The essence of the beast would have been one of Misha's graduation essences. I could have just fed her the essences if it popped out this time. That wasn't to say that we would be coming back to this island multiple times to reattempt the raid and acquire the essence. It would take too long, and since the Ice Double Swordmaster was a core part of my late-game strategy, there were many different builds I had in mind. Using the essence of the beast would be the A build, and there was a B build using a different essence as its core. There's a C build too, but the ceiling for that is a bit low, so I don't want to go there if possible. Given the low essence drop rates in this game, I needed to create multiple builds and cultivate the characters in fluid ways to successfully reach the gate of the abyss. It's disappointing, but we're not at a complete loss because of it. While not as valuable as its essence, the beast's corpse could still fetch a pretty price. What are you all doing? Get the leather off its skin. Its leather, for example, was as effective as Drake leather, a grade 4 material. Drake leather. You mean that famously expensive? I heard that you can only use the leather on a drake's back. Are you saying this entire monster's body is covered in that leather? Then how much is all this? Well, if we sold everything, we'd probably get enough money to buy 1 or 2 rank 3 essences. Still, it was too early to rest on our laurels. Be careful about the leather on its head. That one's similar in quality to ogre leather. What? You mean it's a grade 5 material? And be careful handling its bones, like you would with its skull. If you make swords out of them, they'll be as sturdy as adamantium. This thing was more of a treasure chest than I realized. It was a very large monster, one that couldn't easily be handled by a handful of people, but with how skilled we all were as adventurers, it didn't take long to loot the entire corpse. Skull, leather, organs such as the heart for Raven's research, and much more. After taking everything we could, I noticed Arda just standing there, blinking. Oh, right, him. He had an odd expression on his face, so I approached and struck up a conversation. Is there a problem? After a moment, he began, it's odd. What is? If this beast truly was the cause of the end, you should have all died here. No, even if you didn't die, you should have failed. That is the reason I followed after you, to try and observe the process of the world coming to an end and to find a clue as to how to stop it. What the? Then was he just standing back and watching us, expecting us to all die? So what are you trying to say? I demanded. It's too weird. My research mapped out the time to pinpoint coordinates along its course. I succeeded in my experiments and then arrived at today, the final day. I got it, so get to the point. If you succeeded in your battle, how is today the world's last? Then Arda answered his own question, not with more questions, but with certainty. I apologize, but that beast you defeated just then isn't the cause of the end. That was pretty interesting. In the secret base over the ocean, the machine monster Arda told us that the beast was the cause. But now, a different Arda was telling us it wasn't. Then what is the cause? I asked. We'll need to figure that out from now. How? Those powerful waves of mana that I mentioned before. I thought that the wave was coming from the beast that you mentioned, but that's not the case. Now, even after the beast is defeated, I can still feel the waves. So you want to go over to where you feel the waves coming from? Yes, that's right. I don't have much time left. Got it. Let's get going. I didn't need time to think. I had already expected something to happen after we defeated the beast, and from what I could tell, he already had a destination in mind. How much time do you have left? I checked first, and it seemed we were running lower on time than expected. Well, for some reason, the time I had remaining decreased significantly after that beast appeared. Oh, because of Song of the End. Then should I send him further away the next time we have this raid? While the thought did cross my mind, I wondered if I would ever really need to use this hidden secret a second time. Plus, I still wasn't completely sure of the conditions that needed to be met to summon him, or even how Final Day was able to be cast in the first place. I know everyone is tired, but hold on for a little longer. We'll now resume moving at full speed. After taking all the loot we could, we quickly followed after Arda. Here, yes, I can feel powerful waves of mana coming from within. Let's go in. Surprisingly enough, the place we arrived at was the cave with the portal. I don't think there's anything hidden here. I was genuinely curious. I had searched cave from end to end when playing the game, and I was confident that it's here. We're approaching it at a rapid pace, Arda cried soon enough. I couldn't help but tilt my head in confusion. Are we? I echoed, wondering if there was some hidden space yet unknown to me. However, just as suspected, we arrived right back at where the portal was located. Let's quickly go in. Still, since we were already here, we moved toward the portal with Arda. Vwong. Soon enough, the ominous dark red portal came into view. The moment he saw it, Arda let out a confused exclamation. Huh, a portal? Why is a portal here? How? What went wrong? There's no way. He seemed to fall deeper and deeper into confusion. No, confusion wasn't the word. It was like he began to panic as he started to mumble to himself. Wait. He skittered back like a man afraid, and I figured now was as good of a time as ever to interject. What's the problem? Isn't it just a portal? His expression twisted into a weirder one. At my own confusion before his eyes went wide with realization. I'll ask you one question, Arda said with a deeper voice than ever before. Am I perhaps inside the labyrinth? I was speechless when I heard his question. What was this now? Chapter 813. Hidden Story 5. As far as the game went, Arda was an NPC, a non-player character, through and through. Then again, he was technically more achievement of Gabrielius, as they called, of a hidden secret than anything. It in this world, then. Anyway, I was getting distracted. Am I perhaps inside the labyrinth? Genuine surprise swept through me. It didn't matter whether Arda was a hidden piece, an achievement, or an NPC. Those who were a part of the labyrinth couldn't free themselves from its laws. Monsters couldn't use portals to move to other floors, not even the ones you could converse with or NPCs. Not only could they not move between the floors, but they even believed that the world of the labyrinth was the real world. You were the first living things I've seen in a long time. Where do you all come from? Not the vampire of the bloody citadel. Wild dogs of the empire seized by greed. I will punish you today. Nor the night of the end that I met at the White Temple. This is the labyrinth, and I am an adventurer who is going through the labyrinth. What is the labyrinth? Even when I met that vampire again in the first underground floor, the Duke whom I presumed to be the original Cambormer wasn't much different from the first vampire. It was why I went out of my way to not mention the labyrinth when I spoke of the history of our current era. As I said before, my name is Arda. I am the top researcher at the First Magic Engineering Research Center. Haha, I'm not trying to brag, but only the vice director and director of the research center are above me. Arda also believed that the world inside the labyrinth was their real world. So if all of that was true, what was this? Inside the labyrinth? I repeated warily. What do you mean? It's as it sounds. Please answer me. Am I currently standing inside the labyrinth? He knew of the labyrinth's existence. Well, I'd have to figure out later if the labyrinth he knew and the labyrinth I knew were the same. I paused, drawing out the silence before asking, what is the labyrinth? Could I take that as you knowing nothing about the labyrinth? Well, if I just said yes here, I got the sense the conversation would just stop. I decided to give a more open-ended, ominous answer instead. Well, that'll depend on what your answer to my question is. I would no longer reveal my cards. First, Arda stared at me for a moment before quickly continuing. The labyrinth is an artificial dimension, created using the power of origin, a place where we could create the laws of the world in our own design. Anything can be newly created within the labyrinth, and you can go anywhere you wish freely, and portals are a transportation method within the labyrinth that the former empire thought up. His quick explanation was baffling, yet, for some reason, my heart lurched with a spike of fear. The empire created the labyrinth. That's right. His imperial majesty wished for an immortal life, absolute authority, and a perfect world under him, one which could be controlled by him, like a heaven on earth. Gods are beings, flaws, after all. With too many confusion washed over me, I couldn't make sense of it, even as I took in his every word. Was what he was saying real, or was it just the description that was given to him? However, it did make me curious about one thing, although it may be an entirely unrelated or unimportant question. But why labyrinth? Arda hesitated. I don't understand the question. No, but if they wanted to create paradise, why did they name it the labyrinth? I don't know why that caught your interest, but I will answer you. He didn't even hesitate as he continued. The end of the labyrinth always provides an answer. I stared at him in open confusion, prompting him to explain further. It is an old saying, very old even from my standard. And the emperor spent his entire life looking for an answer to save this massive project of creating an artificial the world. Under the will of that emperor, dimension to create a paradise was named the labyrinth. And the day when the blood, sweat, and knowledge we poured into it lead us to the end of the labyrinth, we will enter an eternal paradise. That was a portion of the speech the emperor gave us when he visited our research station. Did that answer your question? It did, I said gravely. All right, then please answer my question. Arda stared at me and asked once more. Are we inside the labyrinth? Well, I honestly still wasn't sure. In fact, I was even more confused than before. Still, that didn't change the facts. Yeah, we're inside the labyrinth. After I affirmed his suspicion, a long silence ensued. Arda seemed to be stuck in his own mind, not saying anything as his thoughts consumed him, and I let him continue without interrupting. It wasn't either Arda or I who broke that silence, nor was it the dense Anar or the intellectually curious raven. Beep, beep, beep. An alarm ran in a rhythmic pattern. The sound came from within Arda's pockets. As I reflexively looked in his direction, Arda came back to reality and said, "It means it's nearly time for me to return." I see. Even as I kept my response calm, I wrestled with a dilemma in my mind. Should I just continue with our conversation until he left, or should I carry out the plan I had thought of before and forcibly stop him from returning? At worst, the latter would just be an unnecessary detour if no special situation or reward appeared after carrying it out. We're already in that situation, anyway. However, my opinion of Arda had changed. Before, I had only focused on rewards and events. With time, though, I'd come to find greater had importance in the story rather than those rewards. It might even help me, world, understand the secrets of if I need to knock him out. Just as I was settling on my decision, Arda suddenly stopped me in my tracks. Stop. It was as if he'd heard what I was thinking. I wondered for an instant if he had a magic tool that granted him telepathy or something, but that thankfully wasn't the case. Any who have observed the future as long as I have are no stranger to that look in your eyes. I wasn't thinking about anything. I'd hesitated for a beat too long, and he laughed. That would be nice if it were the case. I have my fair share of experience with this and have multiple different safeguards as a precaution. There was no way to know if he was telling the truth, but coming out with such a bold and open statement like that was pretty effective against me. It was making me hesitate even more than before. What do I do? The internal dilemma that I thought I'd resolved took form once more. But if this were just a run of the game, I wouldn't have thought for so long. No matter what happened here, I just needed to try again. Later. How about letting go of that desire and using the remaining time as efficiently as possible? For both of our sakes. Arda once again derailed my thoughts, and I decided to just reveal my true thoughts in kind. Being honest suited barbarians more, right? I don't know about you, but what's in it for us? I questioned. It's because I know why today is the final day. What? I didn't know before, but now that I know that this is inside the labyrinth, it came to me quite easily. I understand why all this happened. Hesitation tried to grip me again, and I threw it aside. All right, let's talk. I would go with the peaceful method. His personality had shifted 180 degrees, as if that dopey attitude from before was an act. Plus, there were too many obstacles for me to just charge him. Lastly, I got the sense that it wasn't a bluff when he said he had something prepared. As long as I wasn't certain I could get through whatever he had prepared or know what his hidden ace up the sleeve was, I couldn't know what risk trying to fight him would pose. Seeing as we don't have time, let's ask one question back and forth. That will make it fair, Arda offered. Sure. The mode of conversation was decided as well. Fortunately, it was a mode that I was very familiar with. I had experienced it many times in the past for one reason or another. From Oral Gavis to Beko Lee to the Round Table, everyone of this world, no matter who they were, tried to avoid taking losses at any cost, even when they had plenty they desired for themselves. Not that I was any different. It's a shame that I don't have misplaced trust anymore. After I'd used the final charge on the last one, I'd planned on procuring another one just in case. However, the item wasn't always out on the market, so I had failed to get one. Well, I don't even know if that will work on this guy, anyway. I shrugged off any regret I might have felt. Then no, I'll go first. Arda paused, processing the fact that I had cut him off. Quickly, then, with that, my turn began. My first question had already been decided. However, since I didn't know what sort of shocking answer I would get. Continue with what you were saying before. How is today the final day? For the security of the conversation, I decided that speaking in the ancient language would be safer. Arda thankfully seemed to understand my intention with it, as he turned off the translation device to answer me. Needless to say, the answer I received wasn't the one I wanted. Ask another question. What? Don't worry, I'm not saying I won't answer that question, he assured me. I just want to move it back a little. Why should I do that? There is a good chance that you'll only understand what I tell you when that time comes. I was a little peeved, suspicious that he might be plotting something, but it didn't seem like he would just come out with it for the sake of it, so I let it slide. Got it. Then I'll ask you something else. What is the name of that emperor you mentioned? I asked it just in case the name of the immortal or the king of the new world came up, but unfortunately, that's a name I haven't heard before. I Grumbled. The name of the emperor was one I had never heard before. Since the name of the dynasty is also different, is it a completely different entity from the kingdom of Rafdania? In any case, that was the end of the first question. Then it's my turn. It was now his turn to ask me a question. As always, I listened intently to what he would say. In a conversation like this, the question itself was information as well. What was he most curious about? As he began to speak, that answer was revealed to me. Bjorn Yandel, have you perhaps seen a being who came from a different dimension, or have you ever heard of such an entity? My mind blanked. Please answer me. This is a very important question. I had no clue why that, of all things, was so important to him. Chapter 814. Hidden Story 6. The question itself wasn't anything special. The existence of evil spirits was a well-known truth within Rafdania, after all. But this is someone from the past asking about it. While I was hesitating, Arda's eyes flashed with sharp wit. An answer given after giving the question. So much thought is bound to be rife with lies. Although he didn't say it explicitly, that sure seemed like him telling me that he could end the conversation at whatever moment he pleased. I decided to get on with it. I was just surprised. I have no intention of lying. Answer me first. We don't have much time. Since we were running short on time, I couldn't contemplate for as long as I'd want to either. You're right. They do exist, I affirmed. Then jumped to my second question. How did you know about them? I wanted to ask if evil spirits existed in the past as well, but I held back. In my experience, questions that could be answered with a simple yes or no should be avoided in these exchanges. Is that your question? Yeah, it is. It's not that I knew. I just had a theory about them. If I knew, then I wouldn't have asked you. I don't like that vague answer of yours. At my legitimate complaint, he seemed to concede the point a little, as he quickly gave additional context. While carrying out the labyrinth project, there were a few unexpected variables we encountered. We discovered unidentified life forms within the labyrinth that we had not created. Their appearances were completely different from ours, but they had intelligence. And after a long period of research, our research team came to a conclusion that unidentified life form was a being who came over from a different dimension. I understand what you're trying to say. Then do. I think that was enough of an answer for that question of yours. Well, he did give me a long explanation. I couldn't allow myself to get greedy here. Then could I ask my question now? Arda inquired. Go on. Please describe to me the world you know outside of the labyrinth. Well, that wasn't anything difficult. I could go on forever if I tried giving him all the details, but the gist of it was pretty simple. The palace, Noark, the labyrinth and the mana stones, adventurers, these points were enough to give a basic outline of the world, and since I explained the events of things within the labyrinth last time already, the answer itself didn't take long. Then you adventurers are people who adventure through the labyrinth to provide resources for the enclosed city. You got it. Then it's my turn. With Arda's nod as the signal, I presented my next question. What is the power of origin? In a way, that was the heart of it all because, from what I could tell, this power was what was driving the labyrinth. It is a power that exists in each dimension. Our empire found the origin on accident, and after a long period of research, we discovered a way to harness the power that flowed out of it. That's a little too vague. Give me more. When you use the power of origin, you can create new artificial dimensions. However, there is only a finite supply of it, so the power decreases equal to the power used. What happens when you use all the power? I threw out the question, hoping for a bonus answer. Unexpectedly, Arda just gave it to me without a hassle. Can't you tell yourself? The end of a dimension will come, like what you see now. Only then did I start to get an idea of what was happening. Arda continued to ask questions about my current world, and I asked questions about his world in turn. I think I've waited long enough at this point. Tell me, I demanded. Why is today the final day? You are hasty. Could I ask you one more question before I answer that one? Although the order was broken, I didn't mind. Go. Have you perhaps met or heard of a creature? No, an intelligence that proclaims and defines itself as Arda. How did he know about that? I took a moment to scan my surroundings, wondering if one of my party members had slipped up. It seems I won't need an answer from the looks of it, but could you still give me an answer? Quote opening parenthesis ... I have. As I thought, Arda donned a serious expression and fell into contemplation. In the end, I couldn't help but ask him. How did you know about that? It was practically the same question as I'd asked before. This entire conversation, I'd felt like I was on the back foot. The questions I felt compelled to ask him kept changing the more I talked to him. Thankfully, at least, I immediately received an answer. The reason I know of this other Arda is simple. It is because I have been formulating a plan regarding it in the present. But from what I can tell, it seems it has failed in the end. Are you saying you're the same Arda as the other one? I cannot say that we are the same in the truest sense, but possibly yes, in a sense. Just below that, could I perhaps meet him? I'll answer this as your next question, but that's going to be impossible. It'd take hours to get there by boat from here. I see. Then I have obtained all the answers I wanted, and the time lined up as well. Quote opening parenthesis ... What? I'd gone out of my way to answer multiple questions in a row, and now he was thinking of running. Feeling cheated, my hand was about to reach for my hammer when he continued, saying, so listen closely to what I have to say. It will be of great help to you. Make it quick. First, after I leave, go talk to the other Arda about my story and learn as much information as you can. He will know how history has passed much better than I have. And then, second, if you can return to Raftinia alive, go to these spatial coordinates that I will now tell you. I will hide a useful item. Therefore, you hiding something in Raftinia, was that even possible? I couldn't wrap my head around any of this. Was this guy an NPC, or was he real? If what he just said really worked, then I couldn't just treat him like he was a simple hidden secret of the labyrinth. Stop. I got the coordinates, so I should just check them out later to confirm it. Rather than getting my thoughts tangled in endless loops, I decided to check on something that caught my attention. If we return to Raftinia, I quoted. What do you mean? Ah, I haven't told you that yet. While we were carrying out the labyrinth project, there were quite a few difficulties we've faced, but the greatest difficulty was this. Arda didn't show much emotion as he continued his story, but I couldn't match his calm. The thing that threatened us most wasn't beings from other dimensions, nor was it terrorism by hostile forces who opposed the labyrinth project. It was simple a phenomenon. A phenomenon. We haven't been able to discover the cause of it yet, but as we worked, there were multiple times where the dimension itself twisted and killed all members of the research expedition. Was he talking about a dimensional collapse? You asked how I knew today was the final day, correct? This is the answer to that. I was left speechless. Wait, is this guy saying that today is when the dimensional collapse will happen? I stood there in a daze, my mind wiped clean of all thought. Veer. The alarm inside Arda's pocket rang once more, beeping faster and faster. Arda took notice of the sound just as I did and rushed over to me. Third, changing the future is not an impossibility at all. What? I managed, still dumbfounded. Give me a proper answer before you leave. Arda grabbed my arm and blurted out, all right, this is the last one. Keep this in mind. A being from a different dimension ordinarily cannot enter another dimension. The only way for a being such as that to enter another is. I didn't even have time to hear his answer before a flash of light blinded me. 2. Nothing much changed after that. The bolts of lightning and meteors caused by Amelia's final day were still falling, and the island continued to spew hot lava like it was on the verge of exploding even after we slew the beast. However, there was exactly one thing that did change. Please just finish what you say before you leave. I had been sharing a conversation with Arda before the flash, and after it, Arda had vanished. The other members had stayed quiet after I began speaking in the ancient language. Now, they just glanced at me, not seeming to understand the full extent of what happened. In that uncomfortable silence, I took a moment to collect my thoughts. Changing the future, beings from other dimensions, hiding a treasure in the city. It all seemed so distant in this moment. If I filed those ideas away and gathered only the important points, then this was the most important one of them all. A dimensional collapse is going to happen. It was just a hunch, but there seemed to be two conditions that needed to be met in order to encounter the Arda from the past. Use final day on this island and do so on the day of a dimensional collapse. It was only a theory, of course. I had no way of testing those conditions. By my guess, the dimensional collapse will probably happen the moment the final day's duration ends. We still had time. Some, but not much. It won't be enough for us to get down to the 5th floor. If what Arda told me was true, we would need to face the first dimensional collapse. On the 6th floor, there was only one thing we had to do at that moment. "Aoin," I called. "How long will it take from here to get to Arda Island again?" "We won't be able to get there as quickly as when we first got there. We pushed the ship too hard on our way back. Just tell me this, can we get there and come back within 9 hours?" There was a pause. "Not with the regular boat we use. We also used most of the mana stones on our way here, and because medium-sized ships consume much more soul power than small ships." "I see. But there is a smaller boat that I've prepared. With that, I should be able to use my abilities to let us make it in time. But it can only carry 3 people at a time." "That's good enough." I turned to the others and announced, "Everyone except me and Aoin will wait here." "Wait, there's one more spot left." "Why are only the 2 of you going?" Amelia interjected, trying to suggest an alternative. "We're not going there to fight. And if a fight does occur, there's no difference between 2 and 3 people being there." "That's true, but we don't have time." "Emily, wait here on standby and prepare." "Prepare for what?" I let out a wry laugh. I was the one who said it, but I had no idea what to prepare for either. "Maybe it can only carry 3 people at a time." "That's good enough." I turned to the others and announced, "Everyone except me and Aoin will wait here." "Wait, there's one more spot left." "Why are only the 2 of you going?" Amelia interjected, trying to suggest an alternative. "We're not going there to fight. And if a fight does occur, there's no difference between 2 and 3 people being there." "That's true, but we don't have time." "Emily, wait here on standby and prepare." "Prepare for what?" I let out a wry laugh. I was the one who said it, but I had no idea for either. Maybe what to prepare. This might have just become my most difficult expedition yet. Chapter 815. Hidden Story 7. The small boat capable of only transporting 3 people rushed over the waves while receiving myriad buffs from our professional navigator. Aoin Rockrobe has cast fair wind. All in Rockrobe has cast trade route. All in Rockrobe has cast ghost ship. This boat's speed wasn't that different from our main ships when carrying all the members of our clan on it. Swoosh. In fact, it felt multiple times faster. Boom. Splash. Bang. Maybe because the ship was smaller. As far as a passenger's experience, though, this ride was by far the worst of the two. Every time we hit a wave, the boat shook and shuddered, leaping into the air like a dolphin. Honestly, if Einar had gotten on with us, the ride would trigger her seasickness all over again and make her throw up all over the place. Just like me right now. Blurg. Unfortunately for me, barbarians were weak on the ocean. Should I slow down a little? No, I warbled. Don't ever slow down. How was Aoyan of all people fine with these conditions? Wouldn't a regular person get dizzy and sick at this point? I didn't know of any stats or skills that a navigator could have that would help with seasickness. Blur. Please hold on for a little longer. We're nearly there. Nearly there. I'd heard that quite a few times already. It had given me strength at first, but now, it was only making me despair harder. Let's think. It was just like that very first day, when I crawled around on the cave floor after stepping into a goblin trap. If I shifted my attention to a different thought, I'd arrive at my destination at some point. The problem was, the seasickness was making it difficult for me to think. The machine monster Arda and the human Arda. The past, present, and the future. The labyrinth project. The empire and the kingdom. The dimensional collapse. All the different pieces of information I had obtained during this expedition continued to fly around in my mind and tangle themselves up with each other. It felt like I was so close to reaching something big, yet I was still too far from the truth to know anything. Still, for some reason, I got the feeling that the moment I could untangle these strings of information, I would have the answer to everything. That last thing he tried to tell me is bugging me too. Even while my head felt like it was going to explode from all the thinking, I couldn't help but recall his words and his expression. Keep this in mind. A being from a different dimension ordinarily cannot enter another dimension. The only way for a being such as that to enter another is. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was going to tell me something very important. The fact that I wasn't able to hear it was driving me up the wall with frustration. Did he time that on purpose? Stop. My thoughts were going on a rampage like an unleashed bull. I reined them in to stop them from crashing into the parts of my mind that needed to focus on what was most important at the moment. A dimensional collapse. How could we overcome the disaster that was likely soon to come? That was the problem I needed to solve first. The Lord of the 6th floor has also been summoned. Man, I hoped that the raid ended before the collapse began. If not, that guy would end up being a huge pain to deal with. Maybe I shouldn't have come here but gone outside to look for a wizard who could use dimensional doors. Despite my doubts, I decided not to dwell on them. It was practically impossible to find a wizard who could use a dimensional door on this endless ocean of a floor. Arda. Plus, I couldn't help but feel that some very deep secret was hidden within Arda's story. Before I left, I needed to figure out what that was. Captain, we're here. I sighed in relief. We'd finally arrived. Yeah. Good work, Blurg. I was already exhausted. You have entered a special area. Field. Effect Arda's secret base is applied. All hostile actions are forbidden within the field. Hatches and pipings lined the walls from end to end. They were the mana circuits that looked like the electrical wiring of the Arda's secret base. However, even though we had entered the base, we didn't hear a voice. Arda, I bellowed, and a frantic reply quickly answered me. You're finally here. I wasn't able to witness you fighting the beast. Some problems arose, you see. But now that I see the reaction has disappeared, I can tell that you have defeated the beast. How about coming here and thanking me personally? Yes, I should definitely do that. However, I must repair the testing site quickly. Don't do that later. Come here now. I have something important to discuss. What does that even mean? There is nothing more important than recovering the testing site. Have you forgotten? This testing site must be recovered to stop the end of the world. What was he talking about? I took out one of the drops from the beast and held it up so that he could see it. If you don't have this, you won't even be able to restore your testing site, anyway. Are you threatening me? Threatening? No, I'm persuading you. So how about you drop the testing site business and talk with me first? I see. Understood. Speak. Just what is it that has you in such a hurry? At this point, I feel that we should talk while looking at each other face to face. That will be problematic. Why? Because you're not human. The answer came back to me through the speakers after a momentary pause. Do you know about me? Yeah, I do. I'd seen this guy multiple times during the game. When I progressed through the normal story, a moment would come when Arda would demand the remains of the hunted beast, and that was when the player would be given a choice. Give it to Arda or don't give it to Arda. The moment that the former was chosen, the story would end with the player obtaining the rewards from Arda. If the player attempted to speak to Arda after that point, he would just say he was busy with his work and tell the player to stop bothering him. If the player then left the secret base due to the time constraint of Terminus, the entrance would close and this place would become inaccessible forever. Put simply, choosing to keep the rewards from Arda would end his storyline. Well, not that the second choice gives that much of a story either. If the player chose not to give Arda the drops, Arda would reveal his machine monster form and battle would commence. He's as difficult to fight as the Lord of the Ninth Floor. It probably went without saying that I was wiped out during my first attempt. My specs just weren't up to it at all. From what I figured out later, Machine Monster Arda was a raid boss that was much more powerful even than Snictura or the Beast. In the end, I created a team that could explore the 10th floor and brought them all the way to the 6th floor to attempt the raid, and even then, it took dozens of tries for me to finally defeat him. The problem is that the reward I got wasn't anything special, even after I defeated him. The reward was one machine monster heart, and I wasn't completely sure what its use was. Sure, it could be consumed to be used as an elixir that greatly increased the character's stats, and when used as a material, it was treated like the highest quality mana core on the same level as a dragon heart. By that alone, it was definitely a valuable reward. However, it didn't feel like anything like a reward you'd get after defeating a monster on the same level as the Lord of the Ninth Floor. That was why after I succeeded on my first clear, I wondered if there was a proper way to use the heart that I didn't know about, so I continued to delve deeper into his story. There were a few things I was able to learn because of those attempts. Answer me. Do you know about me? Well, I at least know that stopping the end of the world isn't why you want this, I replied as bait. He caught on immediately. Are you a pilgrim? Pilgrim. In the context of this world's history, the term referred to the betrayers of humanity who fought on the side of the witch. Arda had asked us the same thing at the start as, well, who are you, pilgrims? You still haven't answered my question. Who are you, pilgrims? Important to note. I told him that we were not. Arda had a way to prove that we weren't pilgrims, and the players had no way of proving they were pilgrims. Then why did he keep asking us if we were pilgrims? Although doubt surged within my heart, I didn't make it obvious. The moment I asked him that question, he would know why I asked and immediately sounded out that we really weren't pilgrims, ending the conversation there. I decided to file that question away for later. How about letting me see your face before we begin talking? When he didn't respond, I pushed it further, saying, I really only want to talk. I will give you this after our conversation is over. The offer was outwardly gentle, but looked at from a different interpretation, my sentence could mean that I wouldn't give him what he wanted if he refused. Thankfully, it seemed Arda understood that subtext as well. With a defeated voice, he said, "Understood," even while all the doors were opening and closing randomly due to the damage done to the testing site. One door had remained closed all this time. That door finally opened with a hiss, and Arda revealed his true form. Clank, clank. He stepped forward to the sound of metal on metal, a sound that human movement should never make. "I have revealed myself as you requested. What do you want from me?" From now on, above all, I had to stay focused. Arda stood a couple of inches above 6 feet tall, looking similar to those humanoid robots made to look like humans in sci-fi movies. However, Arda's particular design left much to be desired. It really is disgusting to see him in real life. His arms, legs, and body were all openly mechanical, as shown by the steel frames that made him up. Yet disturbingly, his face was all too human-like, almost as if a person's face stretched over a machine. Why is his face a real human face? Back when I was playing the game, I didn't really understand why Arda had chosen that form. I figured each person had their own preferences and left it at that. Well, he wasn't really a person so much as a machine. Anyway, that wasn't the point. Seeing him like this, I can tell it's the same face. The secret base Arda and the researcher Arda I saw not long ago were one and the same. Speak already. Although we were face to face, he wasn't speaking with his vocal cords but the speaker system he had been using to talk all this time. "You don't seem like a survivor from the destroyed empire. What are you, really?" "Well, what do you think?" I asked back. "I will not answer that. Then it'll be difficult for me to just hand this over to you. Aren't we here to talk?" Arda just stared at me. His slightly red eyes, that looked like camera lenses, made me feel chills down my spine for some reason. It was like the computer of his mind was calculating what was more efficient, continuing to talk to me here or just ignoring my request and taking the drop from me by force. "I lack information," he said eventually. "As long as you don't reveal your identity to me, all I can make about your identity are guesses. But if you are to make that guess, a pilgrim. But as I thought, there isn't enough proof to make that judgment. Tell me, what are you?" Hearing the question repeated, I shrugged and answered, "It's not important if I'm a pilgrim or not. To me, all I can make about your identity are guesses. But if you are to make that guess, a pilgrim. But as I thought, there isn't enough proof to make that judgment. Tell me, what are you?" Hearing the question repeated, I shrugged and answered, "It's not important if I'm a pilgrim or not." I had already thought up how to steer this conversation to agitate his curiosity, plus how to gain even more than that and gain his favor. Then could I take that as you declaring, "You are not a pilgrim"? All right, let's cut him off here. Research member of the Empire's first Magic Engineering Research Center, Arda. I was sent here by you from the past. Any person, no, even a machine wouldn't be able to hold back after that. Chapter 816, Hidden Story 8. Maybe it went without saying, but even with his mechanical heart, Arda couldn't help but bite at the bait I tossed his way. My past self. Arda, didn't you say you had an idea as to who I am? Didn't you come to this place when you were still human? But back then, I didn't meet any living beings like you. Of course you wouldn't. Then, your past self told me that changing the future is not an impossibility. That seemed to work as a passcode of some kind. After taking a moment to calculate quietly to himself, he slowly began to speak. So the actions of my past self have changed this present moment. That is not impossible, certainly. However, what proof do you have? I think you're mistaken here, I said. once again cutting him off. I'm not telling you to. Trust me. I held up the quest item that he desired, the harvested remains of the beast, and observed his reaction. As long as I had this with me, he needed to answer my questions. It doesn't matter if you trust me or not, I argued, waving the remains in front of him. I just need to obtain the information I want from you. And isn't that the same for you? Unexpectedly, though, he accepted the proposition immediately. What do you want? So then, he decided to assess what I truly wanted by seeing what my next question would be. Well, I didn't mind. Tell me about your story. What happened on this island, and what happened after you returned to the Empire? I had to hear it from him, this story that I didn't know, to see if there was something hidden within. Your question is quite unspecific, but I will attempt to answer it. That's a good attitude to have. Arda paused one last time, then launched into his story. When the final day was calculated to befall on this day, their dimension on the verge of being destroyed was nothing on this island. It was just after the origin was damaged. The beast wasn't here either. The existence of the beast was the greatest difference between the observation of the future and the future that came. May I continue? Sure. I won't cut you off anymore, so go on. After our observations of the future concluded, I spent a long time wondering what the cause of the end could be. I then began to think that it had a close relation to time. I was able to confirm my hypothesis. The Empire's labyrinth project, and with one as the world inside the to grow, the power higher labyrinth continued, of origin held by the dimension continued to shrink. Oh, I see. Then what's the higher dimension? Oh, sorry about interrupting, I tossed in at the end, noticing Arda go silent for a second. He quickly continued. To put it simply, it could be considered the more real world. The real world. The concepts are a little different, but you will understand well enough with that conception in mind. Then go right ahead. The first problem occurred when the labyrinth grew to be larger than the higher dimension. Although it didn't lead to a dimensional collapse, errors began to appear in the higher dimension. Having observed the horrifying sights in this place, I went and protested against the continuation of the labyrinth project, but no one heeded my advice. Arda stood unmoving as he rattled off the facts of his explanation, not moving an inch to gesture or gesticulate. The Empire didn't care what happened to the higher dimension. Their goal was the construction of paradise, and that paradise was inside the labyrinth. In truth, the Empire succeeded in the project's completion and was able to move the entire Empire into the labyrinth. However, I did not leave with them. I abandoned my soul, leaving behind my knowledge alone within this vessel to await the end that would one day come. I believed that the moment the higher dimension came to an end, the labyrinth would also collapse. So time passed, and now, here we are. I trailed off, jumping in when I thought the story was coming to a close. However, Arda sternly shook his head. That is still just the story of the past. I hesitated. What? The higher dimension met its end in that way, and I wasn't able to stop it. And so, I was forced into the labyrinth as well. Wait, I couldn't understand what he was saying. I should keep listening for now. I didn't think it was the right time to cut him off, so I just closed my mouth and continued to listen to what Arda was saying. The land within the labyrinth matched up perfectly with the land I had been born and raised in, a truly perfect replica of the world, excluding a few people in power. There, the residents of that world didn't even realize that their world was inside the labyrinth. Of course, it differed in some ways from the base world. To create a perfect world, the emperor created 4 systems, and those systems were called God, by the residents, as they ruled the world, controlled. However, this is where the second problem occurred. The labyrinth wasn't the paradise the empire thought it was. Or at least, it wasn't so. After the higher the end of the higher dimension, many big dimension met its end, as if affected by and small errors began to appear within the labyrinth. One of the 4 systems created by the emperor went on a rampage and became an enemy. Even the absolute authority held by the emperor weakened. As a result, and monsters of every sort, ones not created by the emperor, began to appear all over the world. And then, most astonishingly of all, the Earth Witch was born. The moment the words were spoken, it felt as if someone had fired a shotgun at the back of my head. Wait. The information was too much to take in at once to make perfect sense of it all, but if I was at least getting the gist of what he was saying. Give me a second to gather my thoughts. So, what he was saying was, if the Earth Witch was first born inside the labyrinth, wasn't Raftania inside the labyrinth as well? It turned out that I needed a lot more time than a second to think, yet even then, the shock of it didn't seem to lessen at all. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter that much. To me, though, the more shocking the situation, the calmer I needed to be. And it wasn't as if my way of thinking was wrong either. This wasn't my original world, anyway, but one separate from Earth. Who cared if I was in the higher dimension or the labyrinth? Still, it definitely caught me off guard. Phew, that helped me calm down a little. I'm fine now. You can continue. So what happened after the Earth Witch was born? I asked, pressing the metaphorical resume button. Arda continued right away like he'd been waiting for my signal. A war began between the Empire and the Witch. Many things happened, but the result was that the Empire was defeated. It wasn't a bad outcome for me. I believed that with the disappearance of the Empire, the end would also cease to be. However, that was just my belief. I had no way of confirming it as a fact. I agreed with the sentiment. A 99% chance and a 100% certainty were clearly different. And so, I observed the final day once more. Yet for some reason, the final day wasn't any different from what I had observed previously. I needed to stop it. And so, I created the base on this island, and continued with my research, and finally, after nearly an eternity of study did I belatedly realize the truth. What was it? That there is no way to stop the end. That short sentence went against all the stories I knew about Arda Island. That is my story, Arda concluded his speech. What? I balked. I haven't even been able to ask you. I have concluded that I have provided a sufficient enough answer to your nonsensical request. I will only allow 3 more questions from this point on. That's not. There is no guarantee that the deal will be kept after our conversation ends. Continuing this conversation with someone whose identity I know nothing of is a waste of time. I might even be leaking my information to an enemy this very moment. Wait, why did his tone change so suddenly? It was just like in the game, when he would change into the machine monster and go on a rampage. If you refuse, use of armed force will be initialized. He began to repeat his words, as if an error had occurred. A chill went down my spine. Arda was a raid boss on the same level of difficulty as the Lord of the 9th floor. If he went on a rampage, I had no chance of surviving. Stop. I stuttered. I understand. I'll only ask 3 more questions, so calm down. Opening parenthesis. Confirmed. Ask your question. What a quick change in attitude. Did his CPU rust in his old age? With no way of knowing, I focused on quickly formulating 3 questions. Hurry. After all, how was I supposed to relax when that was the state he was in? First question. Like a man being chased, I quickly asked. My first question. The 4 systems created by the Emperor. The existence of Raftania. The research center is on the first underground floor. The non-humans that ancient civilizations had never discovered, and this labyrinth where monsters appear and level-ups could take place. I had many questions I wanted to ask, but I let them all go for now. Just what is the Earth Witch? His answer came the moment the first question was out of my mouth. Earth Witch refers to the human female, Elise Groundia. She was born with the power of origin, of which the cause is suspected to be an error created as a consequence of the end of the higher dimension. She is omnipotent, but she possesses too human a heart to be called a god. It was as if he were reading from an encyclopedia. It wasn't the answer I wanted. I only asked that generic question because I thought he'd go into more detail. If I did. Second question. Hurry. Hurry, hurry. Damn it. Was I under a countdown or something? Second question. What is a record stone? And where can I go to see it? Depending on how you looked at it, this information was even more important than anything to do with the witch. Number relevant information available. I stiffened. What? Third question. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Wait, he didn't know anything, but it still used up one of my questions. I stared at him, stumped and feeling cheated. Hurry, hurry, hurry. However, considering the situation, I didn't expect anything would change even if I complained. Still, the fact that he has no information about the record stone is information itself. I decided it was best to let go of my disappointment. All right, as you wished. This is my final question. I began. You said you realized there was no way to stop the end. Then, what is your goal? You can't stop it, so why did you want to kill the beast? Once again, Arda replied immediately. The beast is a being created by the Earth Witch by modifying pilgrims to protect the power of origin. It has no relation to the end. However, Arda wished to eliminate the beast because as long as the beast is alive, none other than the witch can access the power of origin. What's more, Arda's goal is closing parenthesis quote. Suddenly, Arda's voice paused. Then a beat of silence later. I have been solely a bystander for all that long while. I heard Arda's voice. The mechanical tinge was still there. Through the speakers, yet for some reason, his voice sounded more human than before. Had he returned to his original self? There was no telling. I was only able to watch, unable to change anything with my own 2 hands, Arda said, his red eyes peering directly at me from his human face still attached to the machine body. That is why it will change this time. Because change is human. Arda clanked up to me before opening up his metal palm. There, now hand it over. I haven't heard what you are going to do with it yet, though. I will use it to create a new labyrinth. If you wish to stop this. I sensed anger starting to rise in him again. So I quickly cut him off. Here, take it. I don't intend on stopping you. The way Arda's eyes bounced away and back told me he was confused about why I would hand it over so willingly, though I couldn't really be sure. It might just be a hunch I got. Are there any additional rewards? I asked slyly. I think you have something you wanted to give us at first. The time you've spent here is reward enough. Yeah, go figure. I couldn't get the rewards from the game since I took a different route to get here. Really? Then we'll be going. With that, I ended our conversation and left the secret base without looking back, then got on the boat we'd arrived in to hurry back to the original island. Splash. Ian seemed to have a lot he wanted to ask me, but maybe out of the compassion in his heart, he didn't say anything. Thanks to that, I was able to focus on my thoughts and to evade the seasickness somewhat. Arda. There was a gap in history between the human Arda and the machine monster Arda. Although they were the same, fortunately for me, I had an idea of how to make sense of that gap. They were also fundamentally different. Making a new labyrinth. I smirked. It was pretty ironic. If my guess was correct, Arda wouldn't be able to change a damn thing. Why are you smiling like that? I looked over at Aoyan, surprised by the question. It's just a very bitter smile is how I'd put it. My smirk widened, revealing a flash of bared teeth. The questions rolled in soon after. That is why it will change this time. Because change is human. What was Arda's original self doing now? Was he dead, or was he still alive, waiting for someone to kill the beast for him? Did anything really, truly change? Splash. There was no telling. It was pretty ironic. If my guess was correct, Arda wouldn't be able to change a damn thing. Why are you smiling like that? I looked over at Aoyan, surprised by the question. It's just a very bitter smile is how I'd put it. My smirk widened, revealing a flash of bared teeth. The questions rolled in soon after. That is why it will change this time. Because change is human. What was Arda's original self doing now? Was he dead, or was he still alive, waiting for someone to kill the beast for him? Did anything really, truly change? Splash. There was no telling.